Hello friends, and welcome to the Park and Vine Cookbook Cooking Show. My name is Chef Zeph, and I'm very excited to be here with you today to start off our cookbook cooking series. And the way we're gonna do that is with a all-time favorite Cincinnati recipe for Goetta. And today it's going to be a vegan version. So you might be wondering exactly how we do that, and we will get into that right now. The process for making Goetta is actually pretty simple. It only involves about 4 steps. The first is blending some of the ingredients and then putting it all together in a crock pot and cooking it for about 2 hours. And then you put it into a container to then set overnight in the fridge where it will kind of congeal and harden into more of a loaf. And the final step is frying it. Now here are the ingredients that we use to make the Goetta. First, we have our mix of spices, and for all the exact measurements of these, just check the details of the video below. Now we have onion to help absorb and create lots of flavor, steel cut oats for a large part of the volume and bulk of the Goetta itself, and finally quinoa. Now when we blend, we're only going to be using the first 3 ingredients here plus water. So the steel cut oats, onion, and spices. Now the first thing to do is add 2 cups of water to the blender. We're going to add 4 cups total, but in this case, we're just going to start out with 2. And then you can add the steel cut oats, onion, spices, and then finally we're going to add another 2 cups of water. So there are 4 total cups of water in the blender. The mix of spices, which includes chili powder, cumin, onion powder, garlic, salt, black pepper, white pepper, fennel, and sage, and then the steel cut oats. Now all we need to do is blend this until it's extremely well mixed and the steel cut oats are broken up into very tiny pieces. Now after about a minute of blending, we're ready to mix the contents of the blender in the crock pot with quinoa and a little bit more water. So let's do that. So first to go in is the contents from the blender. Next is quinoa. And finally, 4 more cups of water. Now once you have all those things in the crock pot, it's extremely important to make sure that they're thoroughly mixed together, making sure that all the quinoa gets evenly distributed throughout the Goetta. Once all the contents are thoroughly stirred into the mix of Goetta, we're ready to start cooking it in the crock pot. Now cooking usually takes about 2 hours, and it's going to be extremely important that you stir the Goetta throughout the cooking process so that it doesn't stick to the sides of the wall or get stuck on the bottom. And then after about 2 hours, we're going to set it into the tins where they will be put in the fridge where they'll cool and harden overnight. Now, as I said, you want to make sure that you're stirring the Goetta once about every 15 minutes or so to make sure that it's not sticking to the sides of the crock pot or the bottom, and to make sure all the contents are cooking and heating up evenly and thoroughly as well. Now that the Goetta has been cooking in the crock pot for about 2 hours on high, we're ready to see if it is set to be transferred over to set and cool overnight. And we can see that it's pretty thick and it's sticky and goopy. So that's really important to make sure that it's sticky. That way it's going to really congeal together very well, and it's going to have a nice solid set so that when we cut and fry it, it won't fall apart easily. So now all we need to do is transfer this cooked Goetta into baking trays to then cool and set overnight. Now what's important when you transfer the Goetta into these containers is that you transfer it over as evenly as possible. So again, when it does set, it's very consistent throughout the whole loaf. Something you can do to help make sure it sets fully is tap it against the counter so that it compresses down. And finally, we're going to cover these with foil and set them in the fridge to cool. Now that we've blended the Goetta, cooked it in the crock pot, and let it set overnight, we are now ready to take out the set loaf of Goetta, cut it up, and fry it. So let's unpeel the foil that we used. And this is the fun part. Now for this Goetta, typically you can cut one loaf into anywhere between 12 to 15 slices. You want to make sure that you're making the cuts thick enough so that it won't break up easily during the frying process. Now to fry the Goetta, we want to be doing it on a relatively medium to high heat. Now add an ample amount of olive oil to the griddle. And then add the Goetta on top, spreading out the oil so it gets an even layer on the bottom. And now we're going to let this fry on the griddle for anywhere between 8 to 12 minutes to make sure that the first side is completely crisp and well cooked. Now, like I said, you'll be frying each side for about 8 to 12 minutes, but periodically, you can be checking the underside to make sure it's not getting too crisp. As you can see here, that seems like a really nice level of getting fried. It's a little bit crisp to the touch. It's not black yet. So we're gonna check the other slices and make sure they're all ready. Oh yeah. You want to make sure the olive oil is getting the other side covered as well. You can keep shaping and pressing the patty so that they stay firm and well formed. Now finally, when the Goetta is evenly fried on both sides, we're ready to take it off the griddle where we'll set it to cool, and it will harden during that cooling process. Now, you can eat it right after this first time you fry it, or you can put it in the fridge, store it for later, and just heat it up when you're ready. So let's take these off the grill here. Now, we use the Goetta in a number of some of our favorite meals. One of them was the Elsie Reuben sandwich, which had our ruby kraut, Goetta, melted cheese, and a special Thousand Island sauce. So there you have it, everybody. Making Goetta is probably way easier than you thought. It's fun and it's delicious. So go ahead, take your Goetta, fry it up, and throw it in a Reuben sandwich of your own.